Madison raised her glass, smiled wide, and asked right in front of everyone, "So, Rachel, how does it feel, being the most useless one here?" They all laughed, even Dad. I didn't. Instead, I set my glass down, folded my napkin neatly, and asked one question back. "How does it feel knowing the useless one won't be paying your bills anymore?" The silence hit like thunder. No one saw it coming. But I'd been waiting years for that moment, and they had no idea. Everything was about to change. I was 14 when I first saved this family. It was a Tuesday, storm clouds hanging over our South Carolina porch, and I remember standing outside the kitchen door frozen. My mother's voice had dropped into that low, trembling pitch she used only when things were really bad. "Charles, the mortgage is due Friday. We don't have it." Dad didn't yell. He never did. His silence roared louder. He just muttered something about losing a client, then walked out. I went to my room, pulled out the money I'd earned shelving books at Bellamy Books, $7 an hour every weekend. I had $800 saved for a summer camp that, in hindsight, never really mattered. I slid the envelope onto Dad's desk that night. The next morning, he didn't say thank you, just called me reliable. Madison. My younger sister turned 18 that same month. She got a red convertible with custom white leather seats and a vanity plate that read MS Diva. She cried when they unveiled it in the driveway. My parents beamed. No one mentioned the envelope. By 17, I was covering weekend shifts at a downtown cafe. I gave Dad $500 to replace his broken drafting tools. He patted my head, told Mom I was a walking trust fund. When I got into a summer art history program in Florence, I felt like I could finally breathe. It was mine, something just for me. But Madison had missed her tuition deadline again. Something about apartment fees and gallery stress. Dad summoned me to his study. Family helps family, Rachel. I transferred the $5,000 I had saved. He never asked me how I felt about it. Madison graduated from an elite private school that year. I graduated from a state university, juggling 2 jobs and night classes. No one remembered Florence. No one ever asked me what I wanted. I was useful, that was all. And I told myself I could live with that. Until the night of the anniversary dinner. That night, everything cracked open. The table was stunning. White linen flickering candles, jazz trio playing near the garden fountain. My parents' 40th anniversary. Every detail curated except the seating chart. As always, I was placed at the end, close enough to pass the wine, far enough to be forgotten. Madison had already hijacked the conversation. 3 stories in, she was holding court like a pageant queen. A magazine had featured her boutique. A minor celebrity wore her silk wrap. A musician had stopped by. Dad laughed too loud. Mom wore her practiced smile, tight, thin, polite. Then dessert came, peach tart, not homemade. Her assistant picked it up. That's when Madison looked at me, glass raised like a dagger cloaked in champagne, and said it. "So, Rachel, how does it feel being the most useless one here?" The laughter was soft, but sharp, like shattered glass under bare feet. Dad chuckled. Mom gave that half smile she used when she didn't want to seem complicit, but wouldn't dare object. Blake Madison's husband smirked like he'd heard the joke before. He probably had. I didn't flinch. I didn't lower my eyes. I just set my fork down, folded my napkin slowly, and said, "How does it feel knowing the useless one won't be paying your bills anymore?" The silence dropped like a piano. Blake blinked. Mom froze mid-sip. Dad looked like he'd just been slapped. I stood. The chair scraped sharply against the stone patio. Nobody stopped me. Nobody said my name. I walked out, heels clicking, heart pounding. They didn't know it yet, but something had snapped. I didn't cry that night. Instead, I walked 6 blocks home through the humid air and flickering street lamps. Charleston never felt so hollow. My apartment was small, but mine. When I got inside, I kicked off my shoes, boiled water for tea, and sat down in front of my laptop. I had named the folder Records years ago. No one knew about it. Inside were scans of every bank transfer, co-signature, tuition payment, and loan top-up I'd ever made. Most were for Madison. A few were for mom and dad medical, mortgage emergencies. All of them were quiet, unthanked sacrifices. I scrolled past PDFs, receipts, screenshots until I found it. A notarized contract dated March 2015. Back when Madison's boutique nearly collapsed, I liquidated my emergency savings and half my 401k to rescue her. She cried. She signed without reading. And I never reminded her. But there it was, black ink, clear as day. Ownership stake 51%. Rachel Dunn. She had no idea I still had it, and I had no intention of reminding her. Until now. I picked up my phone, called Marissa. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, stranger. I need to talk," I said. Her voice softened. "Your sister again." "No," I whispered. "Me. It's time I took something back." Marissa met me at a coffee shop downtown the next morning. She ordered an Americano. I barely touched my chai latte. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, just years of silence finally wanting out. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked. I nodded. She called me useless, Marissa, in front of everyone. Her eyes narrowed. "Tell me you didn't leave that dinner without reminding her who owns her business." I slid my laptop across the table, opened the contract. Marissa scanned it quickly, then looked up. "You're not just her silent investor, Rachel. You're the majority owner. This boutique legally is yours." She tapped the signature at the bottom. She was desperate when she signed this. There's no ambiguity here. I hesitated. "I don't want revenge." "No," Marissa said. "You want clarity and control. Big difference." That night, Madison called. I let it ring twice before picking up. "Hey, Rach," she chirped like the past didn't exist. "So, quick thing. The boutique next door is opening up. Prime spot. Bank's offering a line of credit for expansion." She paused, waited. "I need a cosigner. It's nothing major, just $75,000. I laughed. It was soft, almost kind. "Madison, I said you don't remember. Do you?" "Remember what I already own, Juniper and Silk." There was silence. Then, "What you signed over 51% in 2015, when you were broke, crying, and too proud to tell mom and dad. I saved your dream, Madison. But you were too busy posting about girl boss power to notice who handed you the parachute." She stammered. "That's not, you can't just cut her off. You wanted an expansion. You'll have to ask your majority partner now." Click. I didn't feel power hungry. I felt calm, like stepping into sunlight after years underground. A week later, the family group chat exploded. It started with mom's text. "Elaine Dunrach, please explain this contract Madison just found. You blindsided her. Charles Dunn. We need to talk. This isn't how family handles things." I didn't reply. I wasn't playing by those rules anymore. They didn't ask if the contract was real. They didn't ask how I'd managed to fund their crises for years. They only cared that I finally said no, that I finally used the power I'd quietly built. A few days passed, then came the dinner invitation. "Come over. Let's talk like adults," Mom wrote. I almost didn't go. But Marissa said something that stuck. "Closure isn't for them," she told me. "It's for you." So I showed up. Same patio. Same wine glasses. Same thin smiles. Dad opened with his usual script. "Let's not make this a scene." Madison sat stiff, arms crossed. Mom clasped her hands like a judge. "Why didn't you just say something all these years?" I exhaled. "Because every time I tried, you talked over me. Or you turned it into Madison's struggle, her art, her potential." I looked at my sister. "You told me I was useless, Madison. But I was the reason you stayed afloat." Her voice cracked. "You made me feel small. And you made me feel invisible," I said softly. Dad tried to interrupt. I raised a hand. "Not tonight." Then I did something I never thought I would. I handed them each a printed copy of the contract. "This isn't revenge," I said. "It's reality. I'm done being quiet." After that night, I didn't hear from them for almost 3 weeks. No texts, no calls, and honestly, I didn't miss it. The silence felt like air returning to lungs that had been held tight for too long. I started small, changed the locks on my apartment, moved my accounts from the family's shared credit union to a private bank, took long walks, drank coffee without checking my phone, slept without rehearsing imaginary arguments. Then one Saturday, I visited Juniper and Silk. The staff recognized me, but Madison wasn't there. I walked past the velvet curtains and into the office, the one I'd paid for. I opened a drawer, found the lease contract, scanned it, then took it to Marissa's firm. We began restructuring the business. It wasn't hostile. I didn't fire anyone. I just took ownership. I visited weekly, asked the employees questions, listened. They were stunned at first, then relieved. I paid fair wages, cleaned up the finances, invested in the store the way I once invested in Madison. Word got out. Clients came in curious, then stayed. Juniper and Silk started turning a real profit, one not built on my silence. A month later, Madison sent one last text, "Madison, you win. Hope it's worth it." I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed Rachel. It wasn't about winning. It was about finally being seen. I didn't press send. I deleted it. Some answers don't belong in texts. They belong in the life you choose to live next. A year later, I stood outside a small gallery downtown. My name on the grant banner in bold serif letters. Curated by Rachel Dunn in partnership with the Florence Collective. Florence. Finally. No debt, no guilt. Just me. Marissa walked beside me, holding 2 glasses of white wine. "You ready?" she asked. I smiled. I've never been more ready. We stepped inside. Paintings glowed under warm lighting. A cello played softly from a nearby quartet. The same instrument that once snapped the silence at my parents' dinner table now hummed in harmony. I caught sight of Dad. He stood near the back alone. No camera, no glass of wine, just watching. He didn't approach. I didn't expect him to. Mom wasn't there. Neither was Madison. And that was okay, because I didn't need applause from the people who only clapped when I played their tune. This gallery wasn't revenge. It was rebirth. A soft start. A declaration that I was never useless. I was just unseen, until I refused to be. I stood taller chin, lifted voice steady. For once, this space wasn't about someone else's story. It was mine. For years, I thought love looked like silence, like doing everything for the people you care about, even if they never said thank you, especially then. But I learned something the night my sister tried to humiliate me and my parents said nothing. Silence isn't love, it's permission. And I'm done giving it. Taking back my voice didn't just change my life, it gave me one. If you've ever been the reliable one, the quiet one, the one they call only when something needs fixing, ask yourself what happens when you stop. What would you do if your family only loved the version of you that served them? Would you still show up, or finally show up for yourself? Tell me, am I wrong for walking away? Am I wrong for owning what I've earned? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this if you know someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to stop being the silent backbone, hit that subscribe button. Your story deserves to be told.